Arf baby arf. So today we'll be reacting to scary stories. And why you say scary stories? Because I have nothing else to do with my life. So, and we're going to do three disturbing true cabin stories in the deep woods, horror stories. And we're going to do this. We're going to MC Prospect Reality. I can actually MC Prospect Reality. Mick Prospect Reality. Clear. O. Sideways. O. Chill, what the heck is going on? Done. Get this video going. Right, chat.
I rented the cabin because I thought it would be the perfect place to finish my novel. It was small, hidden in the woods of Vermont, and the quiet felt like exactly what I needed. The owner, Mr. Larch, was an older man with a nervous energy. He handed me the keys and said, "You'll have all the privacy you need out here."
Yeah, you'll have
Something
all the
about
privacy.
his smile made me uneasy, but I told myself it was just my overactive imagination. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked, cooked a simple dinner, and spent a few hours outlining my chapters. The silence was eerie, but not unwelcome. It wasn't until the second night that things started to feel off. I was lying in bed when I heard it, a faint scraping sound above me. At first, I thought it might be a raccoon or some other animal in the attic. I ignored it and tried to fall asleep, but the sound grew louder, more deliberate. It wasn't just random scratching. It was like something was being dragged across the floor up there. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I grabbed my phone for a flashlight and climbed the narrow staircase to the attic.
Chat, you grabbed your phone
The
for a
door
flashlight?
creaked open,
Crazy.
revealing a space filled with dust and cobwebs. At first, I didn't see anything unusual, but then my light landed on an old trunk shoved into the corner. It was covered in a thick layer of grime. The metal hinges rusted with age. I don't know what compelled me to open it. Maybe I was hoping for some quirky old keepsakes to distract me.
Why do you want something that's
Instead,
old?
I found something far worse. Inside the trunk were chains, heavy and rusted, alongside photographs. The pictures were black and white, showing people bound and gagged, their eyes wide with terror. My hand shook as I picked up a small leather-bound diary resting beneath the chains. The entries inside were written in jagged handwriting, detailing kidnappings, descriptions of victims, and what was done to them. The last entry chilled me to the core. They'll never find the next one. I slammed the trunk shut and bolted back downstairs, locking the attic door behind me. My heart was racing. I wanted to leave right then, but it was late, and the nearest town was miles away. I decided I'd call the cabin's owner in the morning to demand answers. When I called Mr. Larch, his reaction made my stomach turn. At first, he stammered, trying to brush it off as old junk left by the previous tenants. But when I pressed him, his voice grew tense. "You shouldn't have gone up there. It's none of your business," he snapped before abruptly hanging up.
Wait.
That's when I knew I had to leave. I packed my bags and hurried to my car, only to find the tires slashed. Panic set in. I was trapped. The woods suddenly felt suffocating, every shadow a potential threat. That night, I barricaded myself in the bedroom. Around midnight, I heard it again. The sound of chains dragging across the floor. But this time, it wasn't coming from the attic. It was right outside the bedroom door. My breath caught in my throat as I saw faint shadows moving under the doorframe. I clutched the phone, dialing 911, but there was no signal. The only thing I could do was wait, heart pounding, until the noises stopped hours later. At dawn, I decided to take matters into my own hands. If Mr. Larch wouldn't help me, I'd confront him. His property was a few miles away, and I made the trek through the woods, clutching a heavy flashlight as a makeshift weapon. When I arrived, the place was eerily quiet. The front door was ajar. Inside, the air smelled of decay. I found Mr. Larch in the living room, slumped in a chair. He was dead, his body tied with the same rusted chains I'd seen in the trunk.
Wait, so who was the killer? So if it wasn't the guy, who was it?
His face was frozen in a look of sheer terror. My stomach churned as I backed away, stumbling over a piece of paper on the floor. It was a page from the diary, the same jagged handwriting scrawled across it. It simply read, "You're next." I ran out of the house, not stopping until I was back at the cabin. To my shock, police cars were already there. Someone had called them, but it wasn't me. The officers questioned me, and I told them everything. They searched the attic, but found nothing. The trunk, the chains, the photographs.
Well, of course there ain't gonna be no evidence. You know, people are...
All gone. Even the diary had vanished. They looked at me like I was crazy, but they couldn't explain Mr. Larch's death. As they left, one of the officers said, "If I were you, I'd get out of here. Fast." I didn't need to be told twice. I hitched a ride into town and never looked back. But the story doesn't end there. Sometimes, late at night, I hear faint chains dragging outside my apartment, and I can't shake the feeling that someone is watching me, waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
Story number 2, guys. And then we're gonna go through creepypastas, so yeah.
I rented the cabin because it was the perfect base for
like
hiking in Glacier National Park. I'd always loved the solitude of the mountains, and this place, tucked deep in the woods, was exactly what I was looking for. It was rustic, no Wi-Fi, barely any cell service, and miles away from the nearest town. The only other cabin nearby was about 300 yards away, but it looked empty when I arrived. On my second day after a long hike, I decided to explore the woods around the cabin. That's when I stumbled on it. An old campsite hidden under a thick canopy of trees. The tent had collapsed, its fabric ripped and weathered. A few rusting cans and a moldy sleeping bag were scattered around. It looked like no one had been there for years. Curiosity got the better of me, and I started poking around. That's when I found...
What? Why'd you start poking around? Bro, if it was up to me, I wouldn't be poking around. Flippin'.
The journal. It was lying half-buried under a pile of leaves, the cover cracked and brittle. Flipping through the pages, I saw the name Patrick Lunsdale written inside the front cover. The entry started normal enough. Patrick describing his hikes, the beauty of the mountains, and how much he loved the quiet. But as I read further, the tone changed. I saw him again today. One entry read, "He's always just out of sight, watching me." Another said, "I hear footsteps at night. I thought it was an animal, but now I'm not so sure." The last entry sent a chill down my spine. It was unfinished, trailing off mid-sentence. "He's right, Bae." I stuffed the journal into my backpack and hurried back to the cabin. The sun was setting, and the shadows in the woods seemed to stretch longer than they should. By the time I got back, it was dark, and an uneasy feeling had settled in my chest. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the cabin made me jump, and I kept thinking about Patrick's journal. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate steps crunching on the gravel around the cabin. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to believe it was just a deer.
You want to know the most scariest thing? I think, tell me that's not scary. Just see a bunch of kids saying skibbity, skibbity, like, chat, why can't I?
Or maybe a bear. But deep down, I knew better. The footsteps stopped, and then I heard it. A soft tapping on the window by the kitchen. I froze, too scared to move. The tapping stopped after a few seconds, but then it came again, this time from the living room window. Someone or something was moving around the cabin, testing each window. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and sat in the corner of the bedroom, heart pounding. The tapping stopped after what felt like an eternity, and the rest of the night was silent. When dawn finally came, I went outside to investigate. That's when I saw the claw marks on the front door. Deep, jagged scratches that hadn't been there the night before. I spent most of the day reading more of Patrick's journal, trying to make sense of what was happening. One entry stood out. It's not just paranoia. He's real. I saw him up close today. He pretended to be another hiker, but I know the truth. He's a killer. Tucked between 2 pages was a photograph. It was blurry, but I could make out the image of a man with a thick beard standing among the trees. My stomach dropped.